I went through my closet and picked out all of the items that I don't really wear because they're a little bit too dingy or a little bit too sheer, or they've got some stains on them, or they're just in a color that doesn't really suit me. And instead of getting rid of them or donating them, today we're gonna bring some new life back into the clothes by dyeing them. The process is pretty affordable depending what dye you use. It requires essentially zero skill level, and seeing the clothes change colors right before your eyes is extremely satisfying. So I'm going to walk you through step by step how to dye your clothes, essentially showing you the instructions because, I don't know, sometimes looking at little words on a bottle can be a little bit overwhelming. And I'm going to show you what the final result of the clothes look like with each color. All of my clothing is already pre-washed and pre-dried. So first we're gonna start off with these two items because unlike the other garments that we're gonna dye today, these ones I need to remove the color from first. All of the products I use today are by RIT. This is not a sponsored video, although I wish it was, but this is the RIT color remover. From what I've been seeing online, Walmart and Hobby Lobby seems to have the lowest prices for RIT dye products, whereas Amazon seems to have the highest price. So if you are able to go out there and find your color in a Walmart or a Hobby Lobby, that seems to be the most affordable option. First, I filled a stainless steel pot full of water, and I added enough water so that when I put the garments in the pot, they'd be able to move around freely, and I heated up the water on the stove. The instructions say you want to keep your water at around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and while you can use the thermometer to keep track, I just kind of eyeballed it. It says to heat your water right below boiling, so when it started forming the little bubbles in the water, that's the temperature I kept my water at. Once the water begins to simmer, add the pack of color remover into the water and mix well. Make sure your vent is on whenever your stove is on actually, but especially when you're using this dye remover, it does say to do it in a well ventilated area and try not to breathe in this powder. So if you can, pour the powder in pretty close to the surface of the water. Once that's all mixed in, you're gonna pre-wet the item, which I did not. You'll see I actually made a lot of mistakes on this first batch right here and it still turned out okay. But you're going to pre-wet the item and then you're gonna put it in your pot. And once the garments are added to the pot, the instructions online say to stir occasionally. However, the instructions on my packet said to stir continuously. And depending on your garment, the color will start coming off within 10 to 20 minutes. And once it's a white or an off-white, you can remove it from the bath. My tank top, as you can see, never really changed in color, even after 20 minutes. So I figured it was a light enough of a color that it didn't really matter. So I took it out of the bath once 20 minutes were up. Afterwards, you're gonna rinse the garments in warm water and then gradually cool the water down, and you're going to continue to rinse until the water begins to run clear. And then I just refilled the pot with warm water and added a little bit of detergent to wash my garments, and I wrung them out and put them off to the side. Now they are ready to be dyed. For these two garments in particular, I'm using the color wine. Both of these items are from Abercrombie and they kind of feel like they have the same material, but I'm not actually sure what material the long sleeve shirt is made out of because I ripped the tags off. But the bodysuit is made with 50% cotton, 30% nylon, 15% viscose, 4% polyester, and 1% elastane. So since the garment is comprised of less than 45% polyester, I was able to use the all-purpose dye. If your garments are made of more than 45% polyester, then you would opt for these synthetic dyes. So my tap water gets pretty hot, so the rest of the dyeing process will be done just in my sink with the hot tap water. Ideally, you want the water temperature to be at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit or more, and I use the same stainless steel pot. Once the water is filled up, you want to add 1 teaspoon of liquid dish detergent, which I totally messed up on this one again, and I added regular detergent. And if you're dyeing cotton, rayon, or linen, you want to add 1 cup of salt to the dye bath. However, if you're dyeing nylon, silk, or wool, you want to add 1 cup of vinegar to the dye bath. And make sure to shake your dye before adding it to the dye bath. And in this particular instance, I did want a lighter pink color instead of a full deep wine. So I added about 1/4 of the bottle into the dye bath, or about like 2 fluid ounces. Once all of that is mixed together, you can add your garments into the dye bath. Before you add your garments into the dye bath, bath, you can dip a paper towel into the dye bath so you can get an accurate depiction of what color your garments will be and adjust accordingly before dunking your clothes in there. And I did not do that, but luckily everything turned out pretty okay. If you're not loving the color on the paper towel, don't assume that your garments are going to come out a different color. It's not. It's just going to be the color of the paper towel. So if you're not liking the color, readjust before dunking your garments in. They say to stir it for at least 30 minutes or until your desired color is achieved. So since I was pretty happy with the color of the garments already, I decided to take it out and I put them in another stainless steel bowl. Now at this point, you're supposed to rinse your garments with cool water until it begins to run clear, and then wash with warm water and a little bit of detergent. And you can either do this by hand or in the washing machine, but I completely skipped these two steps. Instead, I skipped ahead immediately to the color fixative step, and nothing bad happened to the clothes, but I do suspect that more dye will come out when I wash these in the future because I skipped these two steps. So now that your garments are dyed and cleaned and very little dye is coming out of them, it's time to add a fixative to them so that the colors stay vibrant longer and they don't bleed in the wash. And for this process, I use the RIT Color Stay Dye Fixative. So once again, I use the sink or bucket method, and I filled a big stainless steel bowl with hot water again. And again, your water should be ideally at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. And once your water is filled, you're gonna shake up your bottle and add the fixative into the water. According to the instructions, for every pound of dry fabric, so 2 adult large t-shirts, use half a bottle with 3 gallons of water. And I'm pretty sure I did not use 3 gallons of water, and I used about 1/3 of the bottle of the fixative. I mixed that around and I put my garments in the fixative bath. Next, you're gonna stir your garments in the fixative bath for about 20 minutes. And once those 20 minutes are up, you're gonna rinse their garments with cool water. At this point, just to wash out all of the chemicals, I did wash my garments by hand one more time with cool water and a little bit of detergent. And once my garments were cleaned, I hung them out to dry. And essentially that's all you do. If your clothing is light enough, you can skip the color remover process. So for example, these 2 light gray t-shirts are pretty light, so I decided to skip the color removing process and just put them straight into the dye bath. And coming out, they actually look pretty good still. An important note to keep in mind is to not overcrowd your dye bath. For example, when I was dyeing my items blue, I did overcrowd the pot, and what can happen is your clothing could be unevenly dyed and look a little bit like a tie-dyed shirt. However, since this was a pretty organic looking color, I didn't mind the tie-dye effect too much, and I actually do like the way all of these garments turned out. So let me show you the results. First off, we've got the color wine, and this is what the finished result looks like. I think the color makes me look much less sickly than that tan color did. Next up, and possibly my favorite, but also a wild card, this one is lemon yellow. This shirt looks like it has a stain on the pocket, but it's actually the cotton that's worn down, so it's a little bit thinner than the rest of the garment, so it looks like a stain, and dyeing it didn't seem to fix that issue, but I do think if I were to like embroider something on top of that area, it would hide that area pretty well. And yeah, this color looks a little bit like Big Bird, but at the same time, it is exactly like a lemon yellow. And I love this color on more than I expected to. And I dyed not only that one dingy old shirt, but also my sweater from Quince. I've featured it in a few videos already, but I was just feeling that the white was a little bit too stark white for me. And honestly, I just had so much fun dyeing things that I wanted to dye that too. And I'm so glad I did. It's just such a happy color and I absolutely love it. Lastly, we've got the color denim blue. This is what the gray t-shirt looks like afterwards, and again, it's a little bit like tie-dye because I overcrowded the pot, but I actually don't mind the way it looks. It looks just a little bit more organic, and of all the colors, I know I just said that lemon yellow was my favorite. I actually really liked the denim blue color as well. It has a little bit more depth in it than just being like a basic blue. And this is what the stained shirt looks like now. I know, they're exactly the same shirt, and I actually have 3 of them, and I left one undyed just in case these 2 didn't turn out well. But the stain is a little bit less obvious now that the entire shirt is blue and has a little bit of texture in it from the dye, and I wouldn't feel so bad wearing it out now. And lastly, we've got our white linen pants that were just a little bit too sheer. I have worn these for years now, and I mean, I always felt like they were too sheer every time I wore them, but it's so hot here that sometimes it doesn't even matter. But now, after it's dyed, it is completely not sheer anymore, and I can feel much better about wearing this out without feeling like my butt is hanging out and exposed to the world. Overall, I'd give this experience a 10 out of 10 because now I feel like I have 7 new garments, and I spent about like $3 per garment to give them new life. So yeah, when I say this is an affordable activity, it is actually an affordable activity. Like, one bottle of dye costs $3.67 at Walmart, and you know, you can't even get a carton of eggs for double the price. Is that right? That's so sad. Anywho, I'll have everything I used linked in the description box down below in case you were interested in dyeing your clothes as well. Let me know some of your favorite ways to upcycle your clothing or bring some new life into your old clothes. Or if you have a favorite dye, let me know what it is in the comments because I am just itching to dye everything in my house now. I feel like I'm gonna turn into that little girl with purple glitter all over her face, and I'll be so happy about it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos, and I will see you next time. Bye!